So if you're fixing just one part of it, you're neglecting the other aspects of the broken system. You're not entirely fixing the system.
My favorite episodes are the ones like this week's, where we talk to people on the front lines doing the work about what they've learned along the way.
Effective communication is perfectly key. Being able to understand the words to say to each user is paramount.
Hey, it's The Product Experience, and I'm Randy Silver.
And I'm Lily Smith.
Meet Damilola Adelekan. She's lead product manager at Remedial Health in Nigeria, and boy, has she done the work. You want radical innovation? Try building products that embrace customer needs like cash shortages, power outages, and unreliable supply chain.
I would say the first thing to do is create a structure, because really you do not want to be overwhelmed.
Damilola, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm excited. Super glad to be here.
Yeah, we're really excited to have you as well. And in fact, you reached out to us telling us that you had some interesting things to talk to our audience about. And when I heard the topic, I got very excited. So before we jump into the topic about the things you've learned in your own practice, can you just give us a little bit of grounding? Tell us, what do you do now, and how did you get into product in the first place? You were a zoologist, weren't you?
Yes, I was. Yes, I was. It's been a long journey. Okay, so right now I'm a lead product manager at Remedial Health Solutions, a product leader, and my niche is health tech. So now, how did I get there? Right? I actually studied zoology in my undergraduate. Best believe I did not want to study zoology. I actually wanted to study medicine. Right? But I didn't get into medicine, and so I went for zoology. And I thought to myself, okay, you know what, I can do my major in cytogenetics, which is, really related to medicine. And after that, I tried to do an internship at a human tech, biotech company in Nigeria. They were not even taking recruiting graduates at the time. So I had to wait a bit, and it's like, okay, what am I going to be doing with my time? I started volunteering. And volunteering got me into the health advocacy space. I majorly volunteered, with nonprofits, with different capacities, right? I'm also a self-taught hyperrealist artist, and I also got a fellowship in arts and medicine in 2020. So I've had a bit of journey, in different capacity in the health tech, in the healthcare space. Right. Even working with a nonprofit that was product led. Right. So my diverse background really it threw me it gave me a lot of experience in different fields, and being able to communicate in these different capacities, in these different roles, it got me into a communications role. I actually did PR, PR, and I worked as a communication strategist for about 18 months. Thereabouts. And I've always been fascinated by tech and, the kind of solutions that it offers. And so I wouldn't even say that it was intentional to begin with, but I've always been drawn to the healthcare space and solving the health gap because of the exposure that I had, while volunteering with this nonprofit. I got real-time access and visibility into what was happening in the health space in Nigeria, right? And so my first product role was at Digitising Health, where we were our major product was telemedicine, right? So after Doctora was acquired, I got an offer from another health tech company and then another health tech company, which then happened to be Remedial Health Solutions, which is where I am now. And I've risen to being the lead product manager in 2 years, of my time there. I feel like my path to product management is not direct, but one thing led to another, and my background, everything just came together, in my current role now. And it feels like all of the diverse backgrounds, all of the different experiences and roles that I've had have been very instrumental in helping me become what I am today.
Fantastic. And I love the everything you're bringing to this. I mean, the ability to communicate well, the what you've learned as an artist about iteration and process and potentially collaboration, all of these things, they're hugely important, and people sometimes don't really put as much stock in them as they do some of the more what we call hard skills. But
Exactly.
so you had a few important lessons that you've learned over your years of doing this. And the first one I thought was really interesting. It was about digitizing broken systems isn't enough. And obviously, that's where we start a lot of the time.
Yeah.
There's a line about enterprise software is all people trying to replace Excel with new systems. But
Yeah.
what do you mean by this? What's your approach?
Okay, so remember when I said as a volunteer, I already gained frontline access to what's happening in the healthcare space in Nigeria, right? And from my research and my current, my extensive experience in all of this, I see that, things are like the system is broken, really. It is. Medical professionals, pharmaceuticals, like the supply chain management process, everything is broken, right? If as an organization or as a company, you just want to focus on a specific aspect of the healthcare system, take, for example, telemedicine, right? That's just one part of the chain. How do you relate that to the patients, right? And how about the other frontline medical professionals? Yeah. How about the data, right? Like it has to be like a full 360-degree system that you're digitizing, and that's not even to talk about policies, right? So if you're fixing just one part of it, you're neglecting the other aspects of the broken system. You're not entirely fixing the system. You're just fixing something in the system, which currently is what's happening.
How do you go about tackling that when you want to address a particular problem or solve a problem or a user need, but there are broken bits or bits that kind of need to be addressed and improved all the way along the journey for a customer? Like, how have you approached prioritizing where to focus?
Okay. So I think first, let me mention the problems, right, that currently exist. One, fragmentation, two, trust gap, right? Talk about cash flow, we talk about tech, right? So let's talk about the fragmentation. Fragmentation is sort of like what I had mentioned earlier about different aspects, like the different segments, right? Then okay, so another problem, which is the trust gap now, right, is where currently in Nigeria, and I would say Africa at large, right, or predominantly in Africa, we have issues with authentic medications, counterfeit medications spiraling everywhere, inability to track the authenticity, or like multiple middlemen, right? You don't know where or when the medication left the manufacturer, like multiple hands and, in between. So being able to identify that, okay, you know what, these are the problems that currently exist. This is how I'm going to be solving it. Uniforming or unifying the system, right? So RxAll, a company, a pharmaceutical company in Africa actually does they've implemented a system that you're able to trace and track medication from the supplier to when it hits the retailer's shelf. So if you look at that kind of system now, they did not just build a random system, they built a solution that tackles the authenticity or tackles counterfeit medication, but not just breaking the chain from the manufacturer now, right? They follow it up until the last mile, before the patients, right? Funding too is another problem, right? People are, or like business owners are, it's a little hard or a little difficult to get loans or access to loans. For example, Remedial Health, where I currently work, we do the procurements, right? Business owners are able to procure their medication from us. But if you think about it, that, okay, you're just selling products to them, how are they able to get the funds for this product, right? Because it's hard to access it, from banks or where else, right? So we also do credit financing. So if you look at it from a point of view, right, we're tackling the last mile delivery, like logistics for medication, because we deliver remotely to every remote location in Nigeria, right? We handle the logistics, we handle the authenticity of the medication, because we primarily get our medication from the manufacturers. So we are helping ensure that it's authentic, our original medications that it's in the shelf, and patients in Nigeria. And then when you talk about funding, because if the business owners, if the healthcare providers are unable to afford the medication or buy it in time, like patients are going to be losing out, in the bottom line. So we're able to cover all of that, all of the issues in between that cycle to ensure that patients are able to have access to the right medication at the right time. So, those are some of the ways that we've tackled these problems.
And how do you collaborate with other? It sounds like you have the other business that has kind of solved the authenticity of the medication to a certain point, and then you kind of pick up the last mile logistics, as you say.
Yeah.
But in terms of kind of building, I guess, your product vision and sort of like overall vision for solving the problems that you're trying to address across, it sounds like across quite a broad amount of healthcare provision.
Yeah.
How do you create that sort of product vision within your team and then work with those other providers? Do you have like healthcare committees where you come together with other businesses and you're like working together, or are you trying to solve most of the problems just within the organization that you are in and that you have influence within?
So I would say that this right here that you just mentioned is like another problem that currently exists, right? Organizations or companies working in silos. I would like to believe that, maybe in the US, there's like, how would I say, like a uniform database that any organization can tap into. It doesn't exist currently. We are just, maybe like building our database here in Nigeria. Right. So we as an organization, Remedial Health now, right? We have identified this problem. There are lots of touch points, for these problems that exist. So how are we able to provide a lasting solution that does not further break the process? So I would say to begin with, it's not like we're able to solve all of the problems. What are we anyway? But we are able to partner with some organizations like HMOs, for certain aspects of it, because you also don't want to lose your competitive selling points, But we have a large network of healthcare providers all over the country, so we use that as like our connective tissue, like our connectiveness, from the manufacturers to the healthcare providers, and then with HMOs, because HMOs also have direct contact with the end users, which are patients. And as an organization as well, we have different departments for the different aspects. So when I talk about logistics as well, we have like warehouses and like hubs in different states, just to ensure that we are also able to get medications to those places in time, in the right optimal temperature, without losing or forfeiting the quality of the medication, and also still ensuring that we're able to meet or reach remote locations. So it's actually an extensive network, that we built as an organization that we are also still trying to expand. To be honest, I would say like it can get bigger, if we're able to have a network. Okay, so take for example now, when you look at AI, being able to get predictive analysis of stuff, right, or whatever it may be, it's a little difficult right now, because the data that the AI needs to feed on is not readily available here, and we're just building that database. So yeah, it's a learning curve really, and like growth in progress.
I'm really curious. not about the AI side, although that is always an interesting discussion to have,
Yeah.
but about the I side of that, just the intelligence side. You talked about things there that are traditionally the domain of product people, hardware and software,
Mhm.
but there's a lot of other things there. There business relationships, there's operations, there's logistics, there's supply chain management, all of those things.
Yeah.
And actually goes really well into the second lesson about prioritizing pragmatism and human-centered solutions over tech.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit, how do you all work together? Is this something that comes out of product? Is it something that's business-wide? How do you approach this?
Okay, so we have an enterprise resource planning system, ERP. I don't know if you're aware of that, right? That's what we use to manage the entire departments, right? It's like it's a full system for all of the departments, all connected. It's also product-led because every department uses the product, right? And it can be a lot, trying to prioritize the features and which one's more important. You're thinking about the end users. My users are actually different. There are many, right? Because every, I have the internal team, the external team, I have the healthcare providers, I have the HMOs, and then, the patients, which are secondary consumers, right? Trying to identify which one is of a higher priority. At some point, you may think, oh, okay, this particular request is going to favor the healthcare providers, which would ultimately, affect the patients, right? But there's also another feature that's requested by, say, someone from the operations team. Remember that the operations team, if they are not efficient, the product that you want to get to the healthcare provider, which in turn gets to the patient, is not going to get there in time. So, you have to weigh, which one is a higher priority, right? And what part of the entire chain or process it fits into. Yes, there are different departments as well, different, and it fits into different aspects of the entire system, right? You have the, let me say, okay, so we have procurement, right? Because they're the ones that are going to be dealing with the manufacturers. We have the inbound, because they're the ones going to be inputting the products into the system. What's it called now? Okay, we have the outbound, because they're the ones that are going to be processing the requests from the customers. Then what's the next one? Okay, yeah, there's sales, there's logistics, because after you process the orders, how does it get to the end users, the people that you want to, that are placing the orders, the people that are selling it? We have that as well. Then, sales. Then we also have the finance. We have the credit. It's a full system in the operation, in the supply chain management process.
This episode is brought to you by Airtable Product Central. Quick question. Right now, can you see which product teams are working on which strategic priorities and how they're making progress? If you're juggling scattered decks, spreadsheets, and tools, probably not.
Product Central changes that. AI monitors and aligns your entire portfolio to your top priorities, from strategy to execution to outcomes. Exec-ready status updates are sent automatically, teams get flagged when strategy drifts, and everything can be queried conversationally. Questions like, which initiatives are at risk, get instant data-backed answers that link directly to relevant documentation.
And here's the real impact. Fortune 100 companies have created a single unified roadmap across business units. They've automated executive reporting and transformed annual planning down from months to weeks.
See what's possible at airtable.com/product central. That's airtable.com/product central.
So this is really interesting because it sounds like you have so many people to keep in touch with and so many different departments to communicate with. And obviously you said at the beginning that you've done some PR and communications work before. So it sounds like you're in a very appropriate role because you've got that experience. But for someone else kind of coming into this environment and having to work in this type of environment, what have been your biggest learnings in terms of keeping everyone aligned and on the same page and keeping in touch with everyone? Like, how do you do that? What are your biggest tips for anyone else coming in that has to communicate at this level?
Okay, so it can be a lot. I won't lie. It can be overwhelming having to handle multiple users like this, right? I would say the first thing to do is create a structure, because really you do not want to be overwhelmed, because then you're going to underperform, right? You're going to be getting requests from different places, different people. How would you prioritize it? Well, the way I have learned to prioritize this is first consider what parts of the entire chain the request is coming from and its impact. I mean, I feel like you cannot go with the traditional RISE system or high impact benefits, cost, or like load or effort. Sorry, right? Like you really cannot just go with the theoretical things you learn about product management. Also, communication, effective communication is perfectly key, because you're going to be talking with different people that have different languages, right? What the business team, like business development team, wants to hear is entirely different from what someone from operations wants to hear, and it's entirely different again from what the engineers want to hear, right? So being able to understand the words to say to like each user is paramount. So yeah, I guess when you're able to like handle these things, it becomes easier and you're able to like work more efficiently.
And do you feel in healthcare in particular, you kind of spend more time in meetings, like keeping people updated, or getting information out of people? Like, does it feel more like a people management role rather than a product management role? And I ask that because there was one Mind the Product conference where I think Martin Erickson was like, we talk about it being product management, but it's kind of actually just people management. So it feels like in this scenario, it is more about kind of managing all of these different people and their expectations, as much as it is about working out what products or what problems you want to solve with the products that you're building.
Well, I would say it's both, to be honest, right? In speaking with these people, it's trying to identify their problems, getting the request from them, trying to understand what is, and you have to convert that into features that would solve those problems. And also working and trying to stay with current trends, current policies, what's happening in the system, how the system is evolving. So yeah, I would say it's both.
Speaking of people, we talked about people inside the organization. We talked about some of the other organizations you work with. What about your network, the pharmacists and things like that? How do you harness their superpowers to exponentially improve what you're doing?
One of our setbacks here in this part of the world is digital illiteracy, right? You get what I mean? Being able to ensure that the people that you're building the products for understand how to use it, and how it, because you're trying to get people from their traditional ways that they've been familiar with, right? One thing that we've also, had to do is train some of our users, because you want to increase tech adoption. So how do you do that? We cannot just stick to the regular in-app guide, because like there's a Mr. Chukudi Sule in say Anambra State, right? That's about 60 years old, and the most he has done on his smartphone is WhatsApp, right? The barrier to entry for that is low. Yeah. So if you want him to move from his current way of maybe going to the market to source for products, how do you get him to, like, how do you tie him to your new product? So we do trainings, right? We train them on how to use the solution. We also empower them. Also the messaging also matters, because the words or like whatever you're using to communicate with them has to sell the benefits to them, because like that needs to outweigh whatever the traditional method provides them, right? Then there's also, financing their businesses, because, like you want to reduce churn rates, right? You want them to, you want them to see you as my savior, the best tool that's out there that I can use. So let me also give another example of something that happened. The company, my company, Remedial Health, is we have reach nationwide. I don't know if you're aware, but Nigeria is a multicultural. When I say that, like there are maybe 500 plus languages spoken in Nigeria alone. And the app was initially, in English only, but the feedback that we got from Northern Nigeria was that, oh, you know what, people do not really understand, the language communicating in English with the app. So we had to do a hassle version of the app just to improve, inclusivity, and, just also get them to, in order to increase adoption, basically, anyway. And would you believe that in like 6-7 months, we were able to get like 32% increase in adoption rates. So being able to identify the pain points, right, and just tying your solution to that is going to give you like absolute results. And in those ways, we've been able to increase adoption and use of our product.
And in that kind of scenario, when you have some users, like you say, who are maybe not that strong with literacy and things like that, like how do you go about doing your customer research so that you ensure that you're speaking to all of the customers that it's relevant for, in order to make sure that you're building a product that's working for everyone?
Okay, so we have sales teams located everywhere, regionally in every local government. So we're able to get direct feedback from the users through the sales team. And we also have, like, to be honest, like we really take our feedback mechanism really serious. We have the sales team, we have the customer success, we have the chatbots, we have like emails that we use. And another thing is like people have no problem calling. It can be a lot, but they find it easy to just call and give their feedback, give their inputs. So we're able to collect information and feedback through all of these methods. I mean, one's more convenient than the other, but as long as we're able to get results.
I used to work for an insurance marketplace called Go Compare, and we would listen to some of the customer phone calls that came in. And honestly, it was the most helpful feedback that we had, because it's just, you're hearing the customer describing their problem and describing their experience of using the service. So I used to love listening to the customer phone calls.
Yeah, they can be really, really helpful. And I find it like, I think people are more expressive using that method than, even typing. People are able to say whatever they feel like, whatever their thoughts are.
In terms of like the way that Remedial Health does products and, the product team that you're part of within that business, how are you like looking towards the future in terms of AI and things like that? And what are your sort of like goals as a product team to do the best, the best type of product management possible?
Okay, I mean, we're pretty familiar with trends. It's exciting. We are working, on building our own AI agents. Like not just even as a company, right? Because really, when you look at it, the impact of what we do at Remedial Health, it goes a long way. It affects the entire healthcare system in the country. I mean, it's exciting, it's challenging. I will lie, it's challenging because we have to learn lots of new stuff. Everybody has to take new courses, have to learn new tools, but It's exciting. It's exciting to see what we can do, what we can build. So yeah, really looking forward to that. And the team is, really amped up about that.
Damilola, this has been fantastic. I think we've got time for one last question. And of course, it's not going to be, I don't think it's a super simple one, but let's do it anyway. So we sometimes struggle with, the image that Silicon Valley is the shining star of where all good tech companies and all good product comes from. And, your company, it is backed by Y Combinator, is backed by Tencent, is absolutely part of the global tech ecosystem. But I'm curious, you've talked about so many pragmatic things and some challenges that probably don't come up very much in Silicon Valley. So I'm just curious, where do you get your inspiration from?
Okay, yeah, that's really interesting because I'm not sure I can say in particular like inspiration in in the sense, but one thing I know is that unfortunately we cannot look at ourselves or our solutions in Nigeria here from the same lens as Silicon Valley, right? I think someone had once mentioned that, oh, you're building like another Amazon. I mean, it's fascinating to hear that, but I wouldn't say that we're building like another existing product that exists somewhere in the first world country. So I would say that as a person, I keep up with trends. Interestingly, I keep up with trends. But I also stay tuned to the policies that exist here, the problems that exist, right? The types of users. I think I've found myself veering towards that angle quite a bit. Like, okay, you know what? Let's look at these users. This solution sounds fancy, but is it going to work with these people, right? Is it going to work with the issues we're trying to address? It can, more often than not, it doesn't work that way. So for my inspiration, I would just say that the feedback and thinking about the users is what helps, really. I would say that.
That makes a lot of sense. And yeah, as Randy said, it's been really great talking to you. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you too for having me here. Oh my God, it's been a delight.
Hey Lily, did you know that Mind the Product is the media partner for the Inspire Africa Conference, Africa's largest tech product conference?
That's exciting, and this is the third year for the conference, happening from 14th to the 17th of October in Kigali, Rwanda.
There's 4 days to enjoy, including a masterclass from the fine folks at Silicon Valley Product Group and a Founders Town Hall. We'll be talking with a number of the speakers on the podcast over the next few weeks, so watch for that.
And learn more at inspireafricaconference.com.
The Product Experience hosts are me, Lily Smith, host by night and Chief Product Officer by day.
And me, Randy Silver, also host by night. And I spend my days working with product and leadership teams, helping their teams to do amazing work.
Luron Pratt is our producer and Luke Smith is our editor.
And our theme music is from product community legend Arnie Kittler's band, POW. Thanks to them for letting us use their track.